They thought they could take everything from me, my house, my life, everything. I watched them talk like I wasn't even there. They had a plan, but what they didn't know was that I already had one too. It started on a cold Friday night in Millbrook, Ohio, in the same little ranch house I bought with my wife, Helen, back in 1978. Helen had been gone 6 years by then, and that house was the last place I still felt married. Her blue coffee mug was still in the cabinet. Her rose bushes still fought their way up by the porch. Every floorboard knew my steps, but my son Brian didn't see a home, he saw money. He came over with his wife, Melissa, and their grown boy, Tyler. They brought takeout chicken and fake smiles, and before I even finished eating, Brian laid a folder on my kitchen table. "Dad," he said, soft like a nurse, "we need to talk about what's best." I looked at that folder and felt my stomach go tight. Melissa touched my arm like I was a confused old dog. "You're 74, Frank. This place is too much for you." I said, "I mow the grass every Saturday." Tyler laughed under his breath. "Yeah, and last week you left the hose running." They all smiled at that. Not loud at first, just enough to make me feel small. Brian opened the folder. There were papers inside, big words: property transfer, medical authority, assisted living. My own name was already typed in. I stared at it for a long second. "Who typed this?" I asked. Brian didn't answer right away. Melissa said, "It's just paperwork. Don't get worked up." That was when I knew this had been discussed before. Not with me. About me. I reached for the papers, but Brian slid them back. "Let's not make this dramatic," he said. My hands were shaking. I hated that they could see it. Then Tyler looked around my kitchen and said, "Honestly, Grandpa, once you're settled somewhere, we can fix this place up fast." Fast. Like I was already gone. I stood up slow. My knees hurt, but I made myself stand straight. "This is my house," I said. Brian's face changed. The kindness drained right out of it. "For now," he said. That night, after they left, I found something folded under the folder they forgot on the table. It was not meant for me to see. And when I read the first line, I had to sit down before my legs gave out. The paper was a printout from a real estate website. My house was already listed. Not officially, not yet. But somebody had started the process. My address was there. Photos of my living room, my garage, my backyard swing. Helen used to sit on every summer evening. And at the top, in bold letters, "Estate property, coming soon." Estate property, like I was dead already. My chest got tight so fast I thought I was having another heart spell. I sat there at the kitchen table until almost midnight staring at those words. Then my phone buzzed. "Brian." I let it ring twice before answering. "You find something?" he asked. His voice sounded calm, too calm. "You put my house online?" Silence. Then he sighed. "Dad, it's just preliminary. You called my home an estate property. It's terminology." "No," I said. "It's disrespect." That annoyed him. I could hear it in the way his breathing changed. "Frankly, Dad, you're not thinking clearly anymore." There it was. That sentence. The one people use when they want to take your choices away. I gripped the phone hard enough my fingers cramped. "I'm thinking clearer than you think." Brian laughed softly. That laugh stayed with me all night. The next morning, I drove downtown to see my lawyer, George Watkins. Tiny office above a barber shop. Smelled like old paper and coffee. George had known me 30 years. He looked over the paperwork slowly, then leaned back in his chair. "Did you sign anything?" "No." "Good," he said, "because your son's moving fast." I felt sick hearing that out loud. George pointed at one document. "This here gives temporary financial authority during cognitive evaluation." I frowned. What the hell does that mean? It means if they convince a doctor you're mentally declining, they can start controlling assets while things are reviewed. Assets. That word again. Not father, not home. Assets. I stared out George's dirty office window and suddenly remembered Brian at 12 years old, crying because he broke his bicycle. I worked double shifts 3 months to buy him another one. Now he was trying to bury me before I was gone. George lowered his voice. You need to understand something, Frank. This usually doesn't start with paperwork. I looked at him. It starts with isolation. A cold feeling moved through my stomach. Then he asked, "Who's been helping you lately?" I thought about it. Brian handling my mail sometimes, Melissa picking up prescriptions, Tyler installing cameras around the house for safety. My mouth went dry. George saw my face change. "What is it?" I swallowed hard. "The cameras," I whispered. That was when I realized something terrible. They weren't watching the house for me. They were watching me. I drove home slower than usual after leaving George's office. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Every red light gave me too much time to think. The cameras. Tyler installed them 3 months earlier after somebody broke into a garage down the street. At least that's what he told me. Can't be too careful these days, Grandpa. I remember feeling grateful. Hell, I even bought the boy dinner afterward. Now every memory felt rotten. When I pulled into my driveway, I just sat in the truck for a minute staring at my own house. Small white place, green shutters fading from the sun, wind chimes hanging crooked by the porch. Didn't look dangerous, didn't look like something people would fight over. But money changes faces. I finally went inside. The house felt different now, quiet in a bad way, like somebody had already entered without permission. I walked straight into the hallway and looked up at the little black camera near the smoke detector. Tiny blinking blue light, watching. I suddenly remembered all the private moments that thing had seen. Me falling asleep in my recliner, me talking to Helen's picture some nights, me struggling to get off the floor after my hip locked up last winter. Humiliation burned through me so hard I felt dizzy. I grabbed a broom from the laundry room and knocked the damn thing off the wall. Plastic shattered across the floor. Then I found the second one in the living room, then the third near the back door. By the time I finished, I was breathing hard and sweating through my shirt. That was when my phone rang. Melissa. I answered before thinking. "What happened to the cameras?" she snapped. Not worried, not confused, angry. I looked at the broken pieces on my floor. "You tell me." Silence. Then she switched tones fast, sweet again, controlled. "Frank, honey, Brian's just trying to protect you. I don't need protecting. You live alone. It's still my house." That irritated her. I heard it slip through. "You can barely take care of yourself." That one hurt, because part of me feared maybe she believed it. Maybe they all did. I sat down slowly in Helen's old chair. Melissa kept talking. "Brian's under a lot of stress. The mortgage company's breathing down our necks. Tyler's college loans are a disaster. We're trying to think long-term here." There it was, finally. Not concern. Need. I closed my eyes. "You're drowning," I said quietly. She stopped talking. Then she whispered, cold as ice, "You have no idea what's coming." The line went dead. I stared at the phone a long time after that. That night, I barely slept. Around 2 a.m., headlights swept across my bedroom wall. A car outside. I moved the curtain just enough to peek out. Brian's truck, engine idling, nobody getting out. Just sitting there in the dark facing my house, watching, and after 10 long minutes, Tyler stepped out of the passenger side carrying a key. My heart nearly stopped when I saw that key in Tyler's hand. I stayed frozen behind the curtain. Brian climbed out next, He looked nervous, glancing toward the neighboring houses like he didn't want witnesses. Tyler walked straight to my front door, like he belonged there, like I was already gone. I moved fast for an old man, faster than my knees liked. I grabbed the fireplace poker beside the mantel and stood in the dark hallway listening. The key slid into the lock, metal clicking. Then the door opened slow. Tyler stepped inside first, whispering, "He's asleep." That boy used to sit on my shoulders during 4th of July fireworks. Now he was sneaking into my house at 2 in the morning. Brian followed him in. "I told you we should have waited," he muttered. "We don't have time," Tyler whispered back. "If he changes stuff legally, we're screwed." My stomach turned cold. They thought I was asleep upstairs. They thought they still had time. I stepped into the hallway before they reached the living room. "What the hell are you doing?" Tyler jumped so hard he nearly fell backward. Brian looked worse, pale, guilty. For half a second, nobody spoke. Then Brian tried to smile. "Dad, don't," I snapped. The fireplace poker shook in my hand. Tyler pointed toward the kitchen. "We were just checking on you." "At 2 in the damn morning?" Brian stepped forward carefully like I was dangerous. "We got alerts the cameras went offline. There are no cameras anymore. You had no right to destroy property," Tyler barked. "Property, that word again. Not privacy, not dignity. Property." I stared at him. "You entered my house without permission." Brian finally dropped the fake act. "You're becoming unstable," he said quietly. That sentence hit harder than a punch, because now I understood the game. Every reaction mattered. If I yelled, unstable. If I cried, unstable. If I defended myself, unstable. They were building something against me piece by piece. Tyler pulled papers from his jacket. "We already spoke to somebody," he said. "A specialist." Brian looked uncomfortable suddenly. "Tyler, no," Tyler said. "He deserves to know." He handed me the papers. Memory evaluation appointment. My name already filled in. 3 days away. Melissa had signed emergency family concern forms. I looked up slowly. "You planned this?" Brian rubbed his face. "Dad, please try to understand. You were gonna put me away." "No," he said quickly. "Just temporary care until things settled down." "What things?" Nobody answered, and that silence told me everything. Then Tyler said the one thing I'll never forget as long as I live. "If you'd just cooperate, we wouldn't have to do this the hard way." The hard way. I felt something inside me break right then. Not sadness, not fear, trust. I walked to the front door and pulled it open. "Get out." Brian hesitated. "Dad, get out of my house." My voice shook the walls. Tyler stormed past me first, muttering, "This is exactly what I told them." Brian stopped on the porch. For 1 second, he almost looked ashamed. Then he said quietly, "You're making a huge mistake." I stared at my own son. "No," I said. "I made the mistake 30 years ago raising you to think love and ownership were the same thing." His face hardened. Then they left. I locked the door behind them. But an hour later, while sitting alone in the dark living room, I heard tires crunch slowly across my gravel driveway again. This time, it wasn't Brian. I stayed frozen in my chair, staring through the front window, while headlights crawled across the yard. Different vehicle, black sedan, clean, expensive. The engine shut off, but nobody got out right away. My chest tightened. Then finally, the driver door opened. Melissa, alone. She walked toward the house, slowly carrying something under her arm. No anger this time. No fake sweetness either. Just cold purpose. I didn't open the door fully when she knocked. "What do you want?" She looked tired. Mascara smeared under her eyes. "You need to listen carefully, Frank." "Not Dad." "Frank, that told me plenty." I kept one hand on the door. Melissa held up a folder. Brian doesn't know I came. I doubt that. It's true. Rain started tapping softly against the porch roof while we stood there staring at each other. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. Tyler's gambling. I blinked. What? She looked away ashamed. Online sports betting, crypto garbage, loans, he's buried. The words hit me hard. Tyler? That kid always acted so polished. Expensive watches, fancy truck, perfect haircut. Fake. All the debt collectors started calling 6 months ago, she whispered. Then Brian started missing mortgage payments helping him. Suddenly, every piece fit together. The pressure, the rushed paperwork, the fake concern. Melissa looked straight at me. They were going to refinance this house after putting you into assisted care. I felt physically sick. She kept talking fast now, like once it started, she couldn't stop. Brian thought if he controlled the property temporarily, he could buy time. Tyler promised he could recover the money before anybody noticed. Recover it. Like this was some business mistake instead of stealing from family. I opened the door wider without realizing it. Melissa handed me the folder. Inside were bank notices, late payment warnings, debt statements with Tyler's name all over them. One number made my stomach drop. $187,000. Jesus Christ. They're desperate, she said quietly, and desperate people do ugly things. I stared at her. Why tell me this now? For the first time all night, her face cracked, because earlier tonight, Brian talked to somebody. Cold fear moved through me again. What somebody? She swallowed hard. A doctor. The room suddenly felt smaller. Melissa lowered her voice almost to a whisper. They're trying to push emergency cognitive decline paperwork through before you can change legal control of the house. I grabbed the edge of the doorframe to steady myself. Fast. George was right. Too fast. They think if they move quickly enough, nobody will question it, she said. I looked down at the paperwork in my hands. My own son was trying to erase me while I was still alive. Then Melissa said the worst part. There's something else. I looked up. Her eyes filled with tears. Brian already emptied one of your retirement accounts. Everything inside me went completely still. What? He's had access for months. I couldn't breathe for a second. That account was Helen's emergency fund. Money we saved our whole marriage. Careful little deposits over 40 years. Gone. I backed away from the door like I'd been hit. Melissa stepped forward fast. I'm sorry, she whispered. I really am. Then suddenly headlights flashed behind her again. Another truck pulling into my driveway hard. Brian. Melissa's face drained white. Oh God, she whispered. Brian jumped out before the truck fully stopped, and in his hand was a sheriff's department envelope. Brian came up the porch steps fast, rain soaking his jacket. When he saw Melissa standing there, his whole face twisted. What the hell are you doing? Melissa backed away from him. He deserves to know. Brian looked at the folder in my hands. Then everything changed. That calm mask he always wore finally cracked. You stupid son of a bitch, he hissed at her. I'd never heard my son sound like that before, not even once. He turned to me quick, forcing control back into his voice. Dad, don't listen to her. She's upset. I held up the bank papers. You stole from me. Brian's eyes flicked away for half a second. That was enough. He stepped closer. It was a loan. You emptied your dead mother's account. His jaw tightened hard. I was going to put it back. When? No answer. Rain hammered the roof harder now. Then Brian held up the sheriff's envelope. We can still fix this peacefully, like I was the problem. I opened the screen door wider and saw the papers inside the envelope. Court documents, evaluation order. My own son had actually done it. Brian spoke softly. almost pleading now. "Dad, if you cooperate tonight, this doesn't have to get ugly." I looked at him standing there in my yard, holding legal papers against me while Melissa cried beside the porch rail, and suddenly I saw the truth clear as day. He wasn't scared for me. He was scared of losing the house, losing the money, losing control. That was all. I felt tired all at once, bone tired, 74 years old and standing in the rain arguing with my own child about whether I still belonged in my own life. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I think my heart would have stopped. Brian looked unsettled by it. "Dad?" Then another sound cut through the rain. A car engine. Headlights swung into the driveway behind Brian's truck, George's old Buick. My lawyer stepped out holding a leather folder under his coat, and behind him, Nora. My granddaughter climbed out fast and ran toward the porch. "Grandpa," Brian turned pale. George walked up slow and calm. "You filed the paperwork too late," he said. Brian stared at him. "What?" George opened the folder. "Mr. Callahan transferred all remaining assets, property protections, and medical authority yesterday morning." Brian looked at me like he didn't understand the words. Then he looked at Nora. Her face crumpled when she saw the sheriff's envelope in his hand. "Dad," she whispered. Brian tried speaking, but nothing came out. And that was when the sheriff's cruiser finally pulled into the driveway behind everybody else. Red and blue lights flashing across my house, across Helen's windows, across my son's face. The officer stepped out into the rain holding another set of papers. He walked straight past Brian, straight toward me. Then he said quietly, "Mr. Callahan, we need to talk about the missing retirement funds. If this story hit you hard, let me know in the comments what you would have done in his place. And if you believe family, trust, and dignity still matter, subscribe for more real emotional stories like this one."